Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy my new stories every day. For months, a gnawing suspicion had eaten away at me like a slow-acting acid. Marianne, the woman I had vowed to share my life with, had changed. Her laughter, once the melody of my days, now had a hollow ring. The warmth in her eyes had cooled into a practiced glaze when she looked at me. She started coming home late, her explanations peppered with vague mentions of new projects and impromptu business trips. Today, she was supposedly in a meeting in a quiet suburb, an hour's drive from our city apartment. But something didn't feel right. The intuition that had guided me through life's murkier moments now screamed in protest. I decided it was time to seek the truth myself. Calling in sick, I took my car and drove to the address she had carelessly left open on her laptop. The journey was a blur of autumn colors, my thoughts oscillating between denial and the dread of potential discovery. The address led me to a quaint, ivy-covered cottage that looked more a scene from a romantic film than a venue for a business meeting. Her car, a sleek, silver sedan, was parked out front. No other vehicles in sight, no sign of the team she claimed to be meeting. With my heart hammering against my chest, I approached the cottage. Through the fogged window, I saw them. Marianne and her co-worker, Daniel, entangled in a way no business meeting would warrant. The shock of it rooted me to the spot, a cold fury slowly replacing the initial shock. After what felt like an eternity, I stepped back into the shadow of a nearby tree, the world tilting around me. This was betrayal, raw and undeniable. The drive back home was mechanical. By the time I entered our shared apartment, the initial shock had crystallized into a sharp resolve. Marianne would be home later, unsuspecting that anything was amiss. I would confront her, yes. But punishment? It had to be more intricate than a mere confrontation. Over the next few hours, I laid out my plan. Each step was calculated with a cold precision I hadn't known I possessed. I would dismantle the life we had built together, piece by piece. I would start with the financials, ensuring she could not blindside me there. Then, the social fallout, ensuring our friends knew of her betrayal before she could weave a web of lies. When Marianne walked through the door that evening, her smile faltered at the sight of my grim expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice a mix of concern and a faint, underlying nervousness. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside. "It's about your business trips." The room tensed. Marianne's eyes widened slightly, but she recovered quickly. "What about them?" she countered, her tone attempting nonchalance. I took a deep breath, my next words poised like arrows. "I know about Daniel." The color drained from her face, and the walls of lies and secrets she had built crumbled down. This was just the beginning. As she stammered an explanation, I knew this confrontation was only the first act of my planned retribution. The road ahead would be tumultuous. But I was ready. For too long, I had lived in the shadow of her deceit. Now, it was her turn to face the consequences. The silence that hung between us was thick, almost tangible. Marianne's face, usually so composed, was a mask of shock and confusion. "What do you mean?" she managed to stammer, her voice barely above a whisper. "I saw you, Marianne. With Daniel." "At the cottage," I said, the words bitter as they left my lips. Her hands clenched at her sides, and for a moment, she looked as though she might deny it all. But then, resignation washed over her features. "Alex, it's not what you think." "Not what I think?" I scoffed, feeling a surge of anger. I'm not sure how much clearer it could be. "We were just..." She began, but faltered, her eyes darting away. "Just what, Marianne?" "Discussing business strategies." It didn't look very professional to me. She flinched at my tone, then straightened, as if coming to a decision. "It's been going on for a few months. I didn't plan for it to happen. It just did." Her voice was soft, pleading for understanding. Understanding? The very thought was laughable. A few months. And you thought what? That I'd never find out? She moved closer, her eyes searching mine. I don't know. I was going to end it, I swear. It's you I love, Alex. The declaration might have touched me, had it not been for the vivid images of betrayal that played over in my mind. Love? I spat the word out like it was poison. This is how you show your love. I made a mistake, she whispered. A mistake, I repeated, the words cold and sharp. You've made several, it seems. But so have I. Trusting you was my mistake. Her face crumbled, and she reached out, but I stepped back. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice quivering. Do? Oh, I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth. Your friends, our families, your colleagues. Everyone, I said, each word deliberate, envisioning the network of relationships that would soon unravel. You wouldn't, she gasped, disbelief etching her features. I would, and I will. My resolve was ironclad. And I'm starting with the finances. You won't find a penny hidden away for your little escapades. Her eyes widened, panic seeping through. Alex, please, let's talk about this. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. Fix this. The idea was laughable. There was no fixing a deceit so profound. There is no us to fix. You saw to that. The conversation circled, a miserable dance of pleas and rebukes, until she finally realized that my decision was immovable. With nothing resolved and everything broken, she gathered her purse and keys. Where are you going? I asked, my tone more of a command than a question. To stay with a friend. I need to think, she said, her voice hollow. Think all you want, Marianne. But when you come back, expect things to be different, I called after her as she walked out the door. As the door clicked shut, the finality of the moment settled in. This was just the beginning of her unraveling. My actions from here on would ensure that her betrayal was met with a fitting retribution. The next steps were clear, and I felt a grim satisfaction in planning each one. Her deception would cost her more than she could ever have anticipated. The house felt unnervingly quiet after Marianne left. Each room echoed with the remnants of our shattered life together. I poured myself a drink, the liquor burning a path down my throat, mirroring the scalding anger in my heart. I wasn't just going to sit back and let her betrayal pass quietly, retribution was only just beginning. My first step was to secure my financial assets. I logged onto my computer, moving funds and changing passwords. Anything jointly owned needed reevaluation. I was meticulous, leaving no stone unturned, ensuring that Marianne couldn't blindside me financially. Once done, I picked up my phone and dialed the number of my best friend, Rick. He answered on the second ring. Alex? Everything all right? Rick's voice was laced with concern. No, it's not, I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I need to talk to you about Marianne. What about her? Is she okay? She's been cheating on me, Rick. With Daniel, from her office. There was a pause, heavy with shock. Oh man, Alex, I don't know what to say. I say it's time everyone knew the truth, I said, the words cold and calculated. You sure about this? Rick's hesitation was palpable. I've never been more sure of anything. Can you help me spread the word? If that's what you want, you got it. I'll start with the guys from the club. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it, I said, ending the call with a grim sense of satisfaction. As the reality of my actions sank in, a part of me recoiled, but it was too late for second thoughts. Next, I drafted an email to Marianne's boss. I had proof of her indiscretions, photos from the cottage that I'd snapped quietly before confronting her. Attaching the images, I crafted my message carefully, ensuring it sounded concerned rather than vengeful. The email painted a picture of a concerned spouse, worried about inappropriate behaviors affecting workplace dynamics. As I hit send, the weight of my actions pressed down on me. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life and dignity. But the line between justice and vengeance blurred with each step I took. The final act of the night was to prepare for her eventual return. I gathered her belongings, packing them into boxes. Clothes, books, personal items, each piece a stark reminder of the life we had shared. I left them by the door, a clear signal that her presence in my life was no longer welcome. The doorbell rang late in the evening. I opened the door to find Marianne, her eyes red-rimmed and weary. She saw the boxes and froze. "What are these, Alex?" Her voice broke on each word. "Consider them parting gifts," I replied, my tone devoid of warmth. "You're kicking me out." Her disbelief was evident as she glanced from the boxes to my stoic face. "I'm setting you free," I corrected her sharply. "Free to pursue whatever it is you started with Daniel. This is how it ends." She looked around, the life we built together crumbling around her. "This is how you ended it," I said, turning away to hide the flicker of pain that I still felt. "Goodbye, Marianne." As she collected her boxes, her sobs filled the space between us, a mournful soundtrack to the end of our marriage. I watched from the window as she loaded her car, the finality of the moment sinking in. Once the car disappeared from view, the house fell silent once more. I poured another drink, the solitude of the room amplifying the echo of my actions. Tonight, I had set the stage for her downfall, a grim but necessary act fueled by betrayal and the burning need for retribution. But as the night grew deeper and the house colder, I couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest part of this ordeal was yet to come. The ensuing days were a haze of cold calculations and distant conversations. Each move I made was precise, a chess piece advancing towards an inevitable checkmate. The fallout from the email to Marianne's boss was swift and severe. She was suspended pending an investigation, her professional reputation hanging by a thread. The news spread through our social circles like wildfire, fueled by the whispers of friends and the shocked expressions of acquaintances. My phone was a constant buzz of incoming calls and texts, some offering sympathy, others cloaked in the morbid curiosity that often accompanies public falls from grace. I answered none. The only voice I cared to hear was Marianne's, though not for reconciliation. I wanted to hear her admit defeat. It came 3 days after her departure, a late evening call that I answered on the first ring. "Alex, please," Marianne's voice was weak, tear-stricken. "You've destroyed everything. I've lost my job, my friends, please, isn't that enough?" "Enough?" I echoed, the word tasting bitter. "Was it enough for you, when you decided to throw our vows away?" "It was a mistake," she sobbed, the same plea as before. "Please, I'm begging you, stop this." "A mistake made repeatedly shadows the truth of intent," I replied coldly. "There's no stopping what you set in motion." "I'm ruined," she whispered, a quiet resignation to her fate. "Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted?" "It's only fair," I said, my voice devoid of any warmth I once held for her. "Fairness in betrayal and retribution." The line went dead, her silence more telling than any words could have been. I sat in the dim light of my living room, contemplating the wreckage, not just of her life but of what remained of my own soul. The sweet taste of revenge had turned ash in my mouth. Days turned into weeks, and the initial rush of vindication faded into a somber realization. I had won, yet I felt no triumph. Instead, a hollow emptiness echoed through the spacious apartment we once shared. A final meeting was what I needed, a closure not for reconciliation but to end this chapter of my life, to prevent any lingering threads from unraveling any further. I arranged to meet Marianne at a quiet cafe, neutral ground for the final act of our shared drama. She was already there when I arrived, a shell of the vibrant woman I had married. Her eyes, once bright and full of life, were dull, shadowed by the consequences of her choices and my actions. "Alex," she greeted me, her voice a whisper, devoid of its usual melody. "Marianne," I replied formally. "I wanted to see you, one last time. To tell you that it's truly over. There's nothing left for us." "I know," she said, nodding slowly. "I never wanted it to end like this. I'm so sorry for everything." "Sorry doesn't change the past," I said sharply. "It doesn't rebuild what was broken." "No, it doesn't," she agreed, a tear trailing down her cheek. "But it's all I have left to offer." Our conversation was brief, the words heavy with finality. As we stood to leave, Marianne's face contorted in sudden pain, her hand clutching at her chest. She stumbled, her body weakening with each labored breath. "Marianne." I reached out instinctively, catching her as she fell. Around us, the world blurred into motion, voices calling for help, the distant sound of an ambulance. But it was too late. The stress, the pain, and perhaps the guilt, had taken their ultimate toll. As paramedics arrived, their efforts were futile. Marianne was gone, her life a tragic casualty of betrayal and revenge. I watched as they covered her with a stark, white sheet, the finality of the moment sinking deep into my bones. This was not the revenge I had envisioned. The victory was hollow, the cost immeasurably high. As I walked away from the cafe, the weight of my actions crushing me, I knew that this was the end. There would be no coming back, no redemption from this. Marianne and I had parted forever, bound only by our mutual hatred of betrayal and the irreversible consequences of our actions.